What's up, podcast listeners? We have another awesome episode with Mark Bjornstad of Drekker Brewing. He was very gracious. I approached him kind of like a madman at Brewhalla this past weekend, and he agreed to come on, even for a weirdo like myself. But it was an awesome podcast. We learned about Mark's kind of upbringing, how he was raised, what he was into. A lot like the rest of the episodes, we learned about who he is at the core, and then kind of what his previous professional life was like, and then about Drekker, how it got its origin, or how it originated, how it became the brewery that is today, and how Brewhalla came about, what some of the ideas are for it and ideas behind the company. So I think you guys will really enjoy this episode. And so definitely take a listen. If you enjoy it, please share it. But I appreciate you guys. Come back for more next week.
I've done like interviews with a few people throughout Fargo, so obviously I wanted to, especially with you starting it. I reached out to you a while ago. You must have never saw my message, or just like, this random guy. I don't know who he is, but I cornered you. I appreciate you taking the opportunity. But I like to start kind of like somebody's early on, learn what motivates you from an early age. So where are you from?
I'm from Fargo, Moorhead originally.
Okay.
Grew up here, moved away for a while, but always wanted to be back in this area.
Yeah. So where'd you go? Like what part of Fargo?
So I grew up in North Fargo. That's a cult up there. And then moved to Moorhead when I was probably in middle school.
Okay.
And graduated from Moorhead. And I think just like anyone that grew up in North Fargo, you're just always trying to get back to North Fargo. So that's where I live now.
Gotcha. And then, so you graduated Moorhead, you said?
Yep.
So, what was it like being over in Moorhead throughout high school?
I guess I never really thought of it as different. I had a ton of friends in Fargo. I still went to school dances in North Fargo. Hung out with a huge group of friends there. So I kind of just had friends on both sides of the river, and never really thought of it as two separate cities, just
Gotcha.
all one community.
Okay. And then when you moved away, when was that?
I moved away in 2008 and moved back in 2011.
Okay. So was that for school, or did you go somewhere else for school?
I was down in the cities for my anesthesia training.
Oh, okay. So are you going to school to be a doctor then?
To be an anesthetist.
Yeah.
Yep. And did that, and then my wife and I were kind of on the fence about whether we wanted to stay in Minneapolis. I should say we weren't on the fence. I wanted to stay in Minneapolis. My wife wanted to come back here, and eventually kind of agreed that. I think I kind of figured out that I don't know why I was so obsessed with living in Minneapolis. I think part of it was that there's a ton of fun stuff in there. I had no money when I was in training, or no time either. I think I just wanted to live out some of the experiences in Minneapolis, and was also complaining that there wasn't really anything cool happening in Fargo.
Yeah.
And those conversations happened kind of over the course of a year or more, and came around to the thinking that no, there is a lot of cool stuff going on in Fargo. Also, it's by far the community that we want to live in, and can always visit Minneapolis. And then we were already talking about starting the brewery. Where do we want to be? And we kind of called ourselves out of that trap of complaining about nothing cool going on in Fargo, and just decided to move back and make it happen here.
Gotcha. So go back a little bit here. When you were going to high school, what were you into? What did life look like for you back then?
So I was a pretty well-rounded student. Both of my parents used to be teachers. They taught in a very small town in North Dakota. That was that whole town was very supportive of the academics, of sports, and the arts. And it was kind of unique that they insisted on involvement in all that. And so my parents saw a lot of families that were very well-rounded students. It also helped that my mom was the music and band teacher. My dad was the science teacher, and then coach or assistant head coach for every sports team pretty much in there. Classic small town stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of grew up in this shadow of my parents' experience of what it was like to grow up in that town and what expectations they had.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was in band and choir and all the art stuff, and then sports, and then held to a very high standard on academics, and Moorhead had great advanced programs and all of those enrichment things, and so my parents made me do everything.
Gotcha. I grew up in small town North Dakota as well, so I definitely feel like being part of everything. My dad was a phy ed teacher as well, so I knew the teacher's kids' life as well.
I don't know how my parents did it, but both my sister and I we were literally in everything all the time, whether it's community plays, every single sport we could possibly be in, arts classes. They ran us around to everything, and we had very, very busy schedules.
Yeah. No, I definitely feel that. It's funny. When I went to college, I kind of dropped all of it. I was like overwhelmed and just started working when I got to college. But so when you were going through high school, what did it look like? What did you think your future was going to look like?
I thought that I had some opportunities in the sports that I was doing. Some of those were kind of careers. There was part of me that, I still loved sciences, and I wasn't sure if that was going to be in healthcare or in teaching or what. And I didn't, for a long time, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with that. Anesthesia had always been something I had thought about. But there was a lot of other pulls too going on. So my parents were really good about getting me exposed to people in the careers that I was interested in, and I think through them and through some other good career advice, I don't think they really pressured me to figure it out.
Yeah.
Just that it sure looks like you're doing something in the science realm. That's a pretty generic freshman year. Take all the sciences, do well, and I figured it out pretty quickly.
It's funny how broad, like, just getting your generals can be when you go to college, because you have no idea what you want to do. And like you said, the science, it's so broad. You could be anything from like fermentation to brewing beer, which is also fermentation.
There's a lot of things too where there's a lot of pressure to to pick the final endpoint. Yeah. When you're at the starting point. And in some of those specialties and sciences and academic realms that you get into, you learn about all different kinds of things that you maybe had never even thought of. I know that throughout my career paths, I've been so surprised with different jobs. I'm like, I never even knew that was a job. I never knew that was an opportunity, and it's a really cool thing. But if you don't keep your options open, you'll never find those things. So that's one thing I'm really thankful for, is that my parents and teachers and stuff were very good at making sure that I stayed on the right path, but didn't hyper focus on something that was going to pigeonhole me. Yeah,
I remember probably junior, senior year of high school, looking at a list of careers. Like, these are the careers you can choose from. I don't know if you saw something similar to this. And I specifically remember anesthesiologist being the top one because it was sort of an A. But it was like the high paying one, and like 7 kids from my class were like, that's what I'm doing. Yeah. But probably none of them were anesthesiologists now. One kid from a year above me actually is. But it's funny how a lot of people do try to, your point of figuring out the end point right away. There's so many different things you could be doing. And I don't know, I've had like 15 jobs, and I'm fairly young, so.
I think one of the things too that a lot of people helped me figure out, and it's been good advice for every part of life, is making sure you're choosing not the highlight reel, not the salary of the career you want, or not the travel opportunities or, you know, lifestyle, but what's the dirty side of this? What's the stress? What's the bullshit? What's the what's the part that no one really talks about, but it's the part that's going to grind on you, and then picking a level of that you can tolerate.
Yeah.
And sometimes what are the burnout factors or the deterrents to some people in a career? Those are actually things that some people enjoy. And for me in anesthesia, the stress was something that the stress and the high acuity and you know, fast-paced nature of it, that's what I loved about that career was I loved that it was the number one most stressful job in the country. And
really?
That because you can, you know, stress is relative. Stress, you know, it comes in lots of different forms, but if you can function under that and you're a person that can get yourself in the right mindset and you can train for that part, it can be something very rewarding to function in those situations, and it doesn't have to eat you alive. But when you step away from that circumstance and walk like, wow, like, you know, we were really able to stay focused and stay on task and get our job done when seemingly the whole world was falling around us. And I liked that. So I was really happy that I was able to choose a career based on what to some people would be the negative of it, and realizing that that's something that I actually really like doing. I like being in those stressful situations and problem solving under that pressure. And that's what made that career so rewarding for me.
Yeah. So at what point, or like kind of what led you to making the career decision or the choice to pursue that throughout your undergrad?
I think doing some job shadowing, you know, getting a better understanding of what really is going on in that job, and probably just a, you know, a real personal connection with some of those mentors. That, when you find somebody that's truly honest and you get the real story of what's going on, you see what their lifestyle's like, you see what their actual day-to-day job is like, and once you get that real picture, if you can imagine yourself doing that, it starts to be a lot more tangible for you to say, like, yeah, this is the career path I want to go down. I can see myself doing this every day.
Yeah, that's kind of what led me out of teaching. That's what my undergrad degree was in. Granted, I probably decided that a little too late because I student taught, and I was like, nah, this is not for me. But did you see the stress factors that you talked about in like the day-to-day stressors?
In like the job shadowing?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yep, and that's something that everyone talks about in that career, is that, you know, what you do in the OR is very stressful, you know, very specific and high acuity, but then also because of what happens in the OR, anesthesia tends to be the specialists in, you know, regaining control, stabilizing situations, and kind of solving the enigma of a problem that's going on in an urgent or emergent situation. And because it's all relative, and if you train and live in that environment where, you know, everything you do is, you know, rapidly running through different scenarios and you're used to that situation, you become the expert across the hospital.
Yeah.
And that was so that happens every day in that career. You're called into a different department to help stabilize a patient or deal with an emergency, and that was something really cool to see the people that I shadowed, that to see what their composure was like. You know, they were also very good at either during the situation or afterwards, kind of debriefing on those shadowing opportunities about what was going through their head, what they were doing, what their role was there, and just like, yeah, that's exactly what I want to do.
That's awesome.
I love that.
The career I can say like that, not a job I've done that's similar, and I think a lot of it's a very common one for people to do, is being a server, and there's such a high to going through rush, and you're in the service industry, you've experienced it. You know, it's weird to think of it as most people who have never served or worked in a service industry, like, oh, they're a server. It doesn't really mean anything to them. But when you go through the high of like managing 5-6 tables, that was, anybody who knows how I served, is mostly 3 to 4, but every now and then, and then making everything goes perfect. And you just seem to perform so much better when everything is at a high stress. I think that was a really cool part of working in that field.
It's part of, you have to, there's a sacrifice that you make. There's kind of extending yourself, and the amount of work and control and composure you have to have in any one of those circumstances. When you do that, you're putting so much into it that when it works and you got the outcome you wanted, and people saw that makes the reward even better.
Yeah.
You knew that what you did was hard. And
Yeah.
that's, anything worth doing is, anything worth doing is probably hard. And the easy stuff is never all that rewarding.
Yeah. Did you feel that at a day-to-day work life when you were training and when you became an anesthetist?
Yep. I had the privilege of working with some really amazing people in healthcare, doing cutting-edge procedures, and what we did every day was hard. Mentally and academically it was hard. Physically, the finesse and skill that goes into that job is it's difficult, and it takes a lot of training and a steady hand to do it. And so there's tons of opportunity to put that sacrifice, that part of you into it. And then, the best part about healthcare too is that very rarely is anyone functioning in a sole role.
Yeah.
You're on a team. In the OR, it's a surgeon, anesthesia. Lots of times with the complexity of the surgery, there's some other, health professionals in there, and that's really great when everyone brings their expertise together. Everyone works, as hard as they can, and we get a great outcome for the patient. Especially when that wasn't expected.
Yeah.
It's an emergency or pretty high risk situation. That was great. And in training and then in my career, I got to do that at some institutions that were doing really cool stuff. And so it was daily, and that was awesome.
Where was your training for being an anesthetist? Was it just in the cities, or was
Yep, just in the cities. And then we did it was probably 8-week rotations out into some rural communities.
Okay.
Just because that's a whole different component of often in like a critical access small town hospital, you have to think a little bit differently than when you're at a level 1 trauma center with a ton of resources and people behind you.
Yeah.
So we did stuff at trauma centers, major medical centers throughout the cities, and then did a couple of rural assignments. Some of that is clinic. We did a lot of pain clinic stuff, seeing people pre and post surgery in clinic, and then lots of OR time.
Yeah. So when I think about becoming a teacher, and like this is what I was familiar with, is 4 years of schooling, 3.5, and then your student teaching experience. What was the training required to be an anesthetist?
So it was 3 years of residency in anesthesia, and that's school and OR training, and it's grueling. We did full-time or over full-time school, and then you're in the OR, sometimes 40 hours a week.
Okay.
So you're adding those two together. It's a lot. But also, if that's what you dreamed of doing, you're finally in the moment.
Yeah.
It's great. The institutions I went through were, I had phenomenal attendings. Our professors were great, and really made that like valuable experiences for us. It wasn't always, I didn't walk away every day thinking like I did great today, and my attending was awesome. Sometimes I thought like, God, they were like, I don't know why they were so hard on us with that stuff, but also it's an interesting career where if you're training someone to think on the fly, deal with any problem that could come up, there will never be enough of those educational opportunities by chance.
Yeah.
You have to fabricate some of them. You have to force some stress into the situation. You have to make a situation, start challenging somebody to think about things in a controlled environment, But for the trainee, you can make those stressful. You can make them start to think about things on the fly. What were this patient's, what was their labs last week in the clinic, and you're doing recall in those moments. It's just, they're good training opportunities, but
it's like a Navy SEALs Hell Week.
It's difficult.
Yeah. So I think an OR, and I have no medical experience except for being in surgery a couple times, but I wasn't awake for it. But when you're in a room, maybe it's a trauma, maybe it's a surgery, normal surgery, what's it like being with a group of such high performers? Because everybody there has done, not everybody, but like whether it's surgeons or other anesthetists, it's all people who have gone through a lot of schooling, who are kind of like, they're the ones who stuck with it for 8 years plus of schooling. Did you ever like think through that, or kind of?
No, I mean, they're your peers.
Yeah.
You all went through, long educational tracks, to specialize in whatever brought you to that team.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a shared respect because of that. There's also a lot of further respect and kind of support that you need from those other people on that team, because you're there for your specific reason.
Yeah.
The person standing next to you is there for their specific reason. You have the common interest of doing this for a patient, but there's some areas where you overlap, where what I'm doing is going to have a negative or positive effect on what you're trying to do. What you're trying to do is going to have a negative or positive effect on what I'm supposed to do. Even to the point where a lot of times in surgery, surgeons need to do something, and the way that they need to do it is possibly dangerous for the patient.
Yeah.
To get this outcome, we have to, there's risks associated with the surgery. So the rest of the team sometimes is tasked with mitigating those risks, whether it's certain type of monitoring or putting the patient to sleep versus doing it like under a block or just isolated, regional anesthesia. And so there's just a lot of teamwork that happens there that, I might be able to do something a little differently and help you. You might need to stop doing this thing, or I need to help you understand what it is, the implications of your actions. But there's this kind of shared respect for our overall goal is the same. We just have lots of different ways of how we're trying to do that. And that means that, the OR, we kind of always joke that the OR is the one last place that HR has never been. And that's not a bad thing. Because there are, sometimes it's dysfunctional, but there cannot be barriers to communication in the OR. So sometimes in the heat of the moment, when things are moving fast, that means you have to, and you have a concern you're bringing up, you have to say some things pretty forcefully, pretty clearly, or you have to get told something, very clearly. And if you were just out in an office building, that would have looked like a very hostile moment. But in the OR, that's what the situation demanded.
Yeah.
And so there's a really unique dynamic across the team that can do that, can check each other, can hold each other accountable, can lean on each other when I am really struggling here because I'm of this, like, you need to give me some slack on that. And that's going to make the other person's job harder, but everyone has the same overall goal, and it is a very unique environment. I just cannot say that enough.
That's cool. Somebody from the outside would never have thought about like that kind of opinion, and besides what you see on TV. But when you're in in that role, and probably a trauma, I would assume is probably the most intense when it's unexpected and unplanned. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when something does go from like bad shit crazy to ends up being a positive, and like maybe the patient's stable and that's the goal, what is it like as a team?
Yeah, I mean, you have to take those wins whenever you can, because you also get the ones that don't go well, and those weigh on you. And so you have to celebrate that as a team. You have to be proud of each other. You have to be proud of what you did. And The sad thing is that those moments happen pretty fast because lots of times you have to roll right into another one.
Okay.
But that's the outcome that everyone always hopes for.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you're there. And and everyone it's great to be proud of yourself and to just be really glad for the patient and the family that they got the outcome that they were hoping for. But then you're also just really proud and thankful for the team that you were with, because it doesn't get done without the team.
Yeah. So how long were you in that role for?
So I practiced anesthesia pretty much full time for 10 years. And then the Drekker and Brewhalla were going way too crazy, and we were growing really fast. And with my role here, I knew that every moment that I was away, things weren't going as smooth as they could.
Mm-hmm.
And the more time I spent here, the better that they could. And so I took probably about 2 years to figure out that, like, no, it's a good time. It's needed.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a lot of reflection too on my career to say, like, I've done this for 10 years. I didn't get into it thinking that I thought this was it. I thought I was doing this for 30 or 40 years. But I got some good advice from people and talked through it. And, I looked at what I had done in my career, and it was beyond what I ever really had dreamed it would be. And so I had all my boxes checked.
Yeah.
And healthcare is difficult. It's as an industry, it's in a lot of flux and a lot of growth. As a career, and with healthcare professionals, it is incredibly taxing.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I saw a lot of people burn out. I saw a lot of people get really disgruntled with the industry or the just the overall structure in healthcare. And I still was really proud of what I had done, and really, really thankful to be on the teams that I was on. So I took it as a chance to step away while I still loved what I did.
Okay.
Leaving no regrets, but not needing anything more.
Gotcha. So that was 2011 when you started full time?
Yep. So 2011, and then I left at the end of 2020. Left full time, came here and focused, and then for my last 2 years in anesthesia, when I had left my full time job, a few of my former coworkers and friends were at the VA hospital in town, and they were really struggling for staff, especially on call. And they had reached out to me and just said, "Hey, we heard you were leaving, and that you didn't really have plans to do anything else. Would you consider, like, getting credentialed and coming over here? And if you work once a month, we would love it. If you work once a quarter, we would love it. We don't care." And I did that purely as a favor to some people that I really respected, and they said they needed help, and I did have time to do it, and I had flexibility to do it. And that ended up being one of the most rewarding things that I did. That was the VA had an amazing culture. Their mission to serve the veterans that are in their care was unbelievable. Just as an entrepreneur, to watch an institution that big just hammer out a mission statement, and to have the buy-in and the commitment from the whole group towards that, and then to work with the patients. And it's an honor to care for veterans, but working with the veterans was super rewarding because they were so thankful. They were great to work with. What you were doing was really needed, and when you got a great outcome, there was such a positive impact to it. So that was the last 2 years of my career, and I didn't work there very much. It was mostly just to help out and kind of patch in or take call. Like I'd get called in the middle of the night or on the weekend for kind of sudden emergencies or whatever, and that was a great way to close that book.
Gotcha. No, I think that'd be a noble place to work for. And so when did you start, or actually let's go back. When did you start thinking about, or like where did the ideas come from for
About Drekker?
Yeah.
I think me and a few of the other guys that started this had kind of always talked about what was needed and what was possible, and really what our ideas around what Drekker was going to be was different than a normal craft brewery, different than just where the craft beer trend was going. We really saw an opportunity to do something super cool in Fargo for the Fargo community, but then also do something as a brand that really pushed boundaries and challenged expectations on what beer could be.
Okay.
And those conversations probably started around 2007, 2008, really pulling things together about what it would look like, what we want to do. And then we got really serious around 2011 or 2010, 2011, when we were making the choice to, I was moving back. A couple of us were kind of choosing to organize our careers and where we were living around this. And then we opened the brewery in 2014.
Okay.
So 11 to 14, that seemed like that was a blur. We bought a commercial pilot system. We installed it in my third garage. We did tons of just analytical brewing on, ways that we could do new styles of beer or new techniques and pushing that stuff out. And then one thing about brewing that's not a lot of people realize is that it's a lot of sitting around. It's, start a process and then wait 3 hours. Finish that process and then wait another 2 hours. And then it's a lot of cleaning. So you're sitting around kind of doing some mundane work and then some gaps in between. And we filled those times with, a long agenda list of, why are we doing this at a core? What is our vision here? And then where can we push this thing to go? And so we thought about not just the brewery side of it, but also the whole brand and experience simultaneously from the beginning and all the way through. And that's one of the reasons why we love what we do here. And that's one of the big things that drives us here at Drekker, is that it's not just about beer. It's not just about, sales or distribution. It's about this whole integrated experience that we can create around throughout the fabric of everything that we're creating.
Yeah. So when you were talking with your buddies about how starting it and the vision you wanted to have, what was it back then? Like, what were you wanting it to be?
We've been really intentional about never setting goals that were metric based, but setting goals that were somewhat intangible about, we want to, being who we wanted to be. And so wherever that landed us, that was where we were supposed to be. I wouldn't care if we were a tiny little nano brewery tap room. If that meant that we were challenging people's expectations and creating weird beers and getting a group of people together and doing some fun events, if we were checking those boxes on that scale, that's awesome. That's why we did it. But for us, really when we were thinking about what it could be, it's nowhere near this.
Yeah. So this wasn't in the original drawings.
No, not in the scope or scale. But I think the reason that we find ourselves here is because we're doing the same thing that we were dreaming of doing, 10 plus years ago. And we're doing the same thing that we were doing when we started the brewery downtown 9 years ago. We know exactly who we are. We know exactly how we're supposed to do stuff. And all we think about are inputs. The inputs that we are supposed to put into this project. And if you do that, the outputs probably take care of themselves. They're maybe not what you expected, but it's probably what you deserve.
Yeah,
I guess. And I say that because sometimes the outputs aren't always great. You get yourself into a situation where, like, okay, well, there's an unintended consequence of something we were trying to do, and we got it. Now we know we got to be more careful about those types of inputs, but we really don't care about outputs. We don't care about how many states we distribute into. We don't care about how much revenue we do. We don't care about how many beers we have, a number of beers we have on tap. And, I think of a lot of breweries define themselves by those finite metrics that you can do. I mean, actually, a lot of companies do that, where you can set the rules however you want so that you can be, the best business at this thing in this neighborhood of this. You can keep creating it so that you win.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
And that's a very finite type of thinking. And really, there is no game. There are no rules. And there's no end point. There's no clock that's running. So we didn't always think that way, and it's a struggle to remember sometimes that there is no game here being played.
Yeah.
There are no rules. No one's keeping score between us and whoever we're looking at. This is infinite. We have to only think about who we are, why we're doing this, how it is that we choose to do things, and then we'll just end up wherever we're supposed to.
Gotcha. So going back to like when you were first thinking about like with your buddies, I've noticed like a sense of weirdness with Drekker and maybe embracing weirdos. I think I saw on a post one time, something like that. Has that always been a theme of you guys?
Well, it's about shattering norms.
Okay.
It's people call, the weird ones, the outliers, the strange people, the artists, whatever it is. That's a group that I think that's a name that gets donned on those groups. And we take it and embrace it because we are trying to shatter as many norms as possible. We're trying to, create new experiences and destroy expectations. And that's why we love those moments where, you might think the beers that we do are weird or the artwork that we have is, strange. But to us, at least you thought about it. If we were doing stuff that was so normie and vanilla and you never thought about it, what a terrible way to like value your work. That you're doing something that's supposed to be so, normal that no one notices or cares. Like, to me, that's like sad.
Yeah.
And, in the craft beer world, creativity is something that we do have the ability to play with. And we want to constantly shock people with what beer can be, with what an event can be, with what spaces in a community space can be. And that's why we're always looking for those weird opportunities. Because it makes somebody, for a moment, kind of glitch and step out of their normal life and their normal routine, and maybe they enjoy it, maybe they think about it, maybe it challenges them to contemplate what's going on or what it is that they're drinking or what these people are talking about. But at least they're thinking about it. At least you're having a genuine moment of human experience.
Yeah.
I think there's too much of our day is spent with the same macro conglomerate, like soulless minimum value quotient stuff.
I remember the first time I came here, and I was like, the artwork is the first thing I noticed, and I was like, I love the artwork. It's awesome, and it's just so different, and it's so different than anything else in Fargo, in my opinion. And so that's definitely something cool to see, and I love the weirdness of it. And I lived down in like Columbus, Ohio, for 2 years. I loved, very similar to the Twin Cities, I feel like, size-wise, and probably like people and whatnot as well. Definitely still a Midwest community, way more diverse. But yeah, when I was down there, I had a buddy who loved new experiences. We would go to a different brewery. I think they have like 40 breweries in Columbus. And so we went to a different brewery like every weekend, or maybe 3 in a day, something like that. But like, it was always, but Aaron, you need to come back and check out Drekker. You need to come back and check out Drekker. Because it was weird, because I wasn't a big brewery person before I left Fargo, but it left an impression that, like, this is a cool spot to come check out. And he was here this summer, and he absolutely loved it. And so it's always a staple of like bringing friends here to check it out, just for, they're like, what is the name of that beer? And they're like, okay, yeah, that's awesome.
We think there's a lot of cool stuff happening in Fargo. There's a lot of cool weird experiences. There's amazing craft people,
Mm-hmm.
creative people, and it's really awesome that we have a brand that now reaches quite a bit further out than Fargo, and so there's people that come and visit us, and maybe we're the reason they came here, but the biggest reward that we can get is when a lot of them reach back out to us, or they're telling us when they're here, they're like, I came here for you guys, but oh my gosh, I just had the best bagels and food downtown Fargo, and
Mm-hmm.
or like some other place they went to, or went to this museum, and this was such amazing artwork that you guys have here, and that Fargo's got some really awesome stuff going on, and we're happy to be sometimes the reason that people came here, but then they get to see all the other cool stuff that's going on in town, and it's awesome. This is a cool place.
I have a friend going to grad school. Actually, he's done with grad school. He's just working in Gainesville, Florida now. And he met a friend at the bar. And this friend is from Idaho. And he was wearing a Drekker hat. And he was one of the friends I brought here. And so he's like, why on earth does this guy have a Drekker hat? I was like, oh, the brand's getting out there. But so when you first were looking to get started with the brewery, you opened in 2014, you said?
Mm-hmm.
And that was downtown?
Yep.
What was the process like of finally picking location and getting into that space?
Yeah, that was we spent, it felt like years. It was years
Mm-hmm.
looking for a location that we could turn into the brewery. That there's a lot of things on the list of we have to have this type of power, we have to have this type of water line, we have
Mm-hmm.
all those things. But man, we really struggled on finding a space. We had a couple, I should say, we struggled finding a place like almost ever that would check our boxes, but then also was going to be something cool, an area that we thought was going to be magnetic. And we actually got to the point where we just started cold calling buildings that either looked vacant or business that wasn't doing well. Just offered,
Mm-hmm.
any chance this is going to come up? Would you be willing to chat about, this opportunity? And what we ended up have happen out of that was one of the most frustrating things that we never anticipated was twice. We had two buildings on the finish line. It was a done deal, and both times, like literally on the way to meetings to sign and close and do it all, they had asked for blueprints or renderings or anything that we'd been talking about, and so we shared those, and both of those groups canceled the meeting and ghosted us for several weeks, and then all we found out was that they didn't realize the opportunity that was in that
Mm-hmm.
building, and then they chose to go a different route with developing that building, which meant that they weren't going to sell it to us
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. They were going to develop it themselves. And that was like incredibly frustrating to, I think one of them we put 8 months into that. And luckily on our team, Mason, one of the founders, he's an engineer. He can run CAD drawings like it's playing a video game and just create this stuff. And so what really wasn't cost to us, we hadn't gone out and paid an architecture firm thousands and thousands of dollars to create these. We built them ourselves and did it because that's the talent that we had on the team. But it was so frustrating to have that happen and have these buildings, these projects keep walking away from us because somebody saw what we saw as a diamond in the rough. But then we got to the point where we knew we wanted to be in downtown Fargo, and that first location in Cityscapes Plaza downtown came up, and it was the right time, and it was a blank slate. So it was a little bit different project than we wanted originally, but it worked, and we were ready to go, and so we rolled with it.
Where was that first location? I've never been to that one.
It's 630 First Avenue North. So next to like Worst Beer Hall, kind of in the middle of that building.
Okay. Gotcha.
So that's where we started, and it was great. We loved being in downtown Fargo. We loved that connection to a neighborhood traffic. You know, not just us, but there'd be there might be an event or something going on, or great weather, and the whole of downtown Fargo would be buzzing, and that was really fun to be a part of that. It also got us a lot of exposure that because we were downtown, people stumbled across us, or were maybe a little bit more willing to come and try us because they were gonna go have a beer before they went and got dinner, before they went to the show at the Fargo Theater, and it was a great place to launch the brewery.
Gotcha. It definitely is, like, Fargo downtown. I've been to, I don't know, several big cities, and it seems like one of the most, like, you can have a great night downtown, go to great bars, and it's walking accessible, especially now with the parking garage.
Yep.
But it's a great spot. And then you moved over to this location when?
Yep. So, this was the building that we always wanted. It was just too big of a project to rehab the building and start a brewery. Those are two very separate and very intricate projects themselves. And it was in terrible condition. We broke into it, realized we still had 1 foot out the window, 1 foot in the building, that we were not the only people in the building. Got out. We came back a couple other times. We loved the building. It was, we just kind of didn't know if we were ever going to get the chance to do it, if we could do it. And I think we were terrified that someday we were going to drive down First Avenue and there was going to be bulldozers in front of it because it was bad. And then around the time that we were growing too fast downtown, we were looking for anything, whether that was a production facility and we keep the taproom presence downtown. We'd look for a second location and do 2 breweries, and just run them together and kind of combine production. And this building came back on the table, and we didn't think twice about it. Kind of thought we don't care what it takes or what's going to go into it. We don't even care about looking at any other options. We've always loved this place.
Yeah,
this is the only place we want to be now.
And I think the nice thing about even this building now is you could do whatever you wanted over here. Like, you weren't part of downtown. You had your own building, your own space. Is that kind of what you wanted as well, or? Yeah,
I mean, you stepped out of our front door and you're on a public right-of-way sidewalk. You stepped out the back door downtown and you're on a public right-of-way alley. If we wanted to put a table outside the front door, we needed a permit.
Yeah.
And we're the type of people that don't want anyone telling us what to do. And even though the city was, always really flexible with working with us and always willing to hear what it was we were trying to do, we needed a place where we could control our own destiny a little bit more.
Yeah.
So that's really what this whole area, this complex, has been.
Gotcha. And then, so when you first came over here and you had the idea of renovating this space, or was it an old granary?
It was a locomotive repair building.
Okay. When you finally got it functioning and started, what was it like seeing the visions come true or come to fruition?
That whole project was great because, rehab projects look better and better and better. As you get close to being done, that you get windows back into the old bricked out spots in the wall. You get the wood cleaned up, and so that whole project was just super rewarding. We were just watching this building come back to life, and then to see people enjoy the space, love what we did. I think some people thought it was crazy, and we were probably in that camp for a while that we're going to leave downtown, and that's the hub of activity. That's where everything's going on in Fargo. Why would you guys leave that? I think when people finally got out here, saw what was going on, to be like, yeah, this is good. There's tons of opportunity out here, and that's always rewarding to see people using it the way that you dreamed people would, to do all the things that you thought were going to build that experience and have people walk away with that experience that you wanted them to have. It's great because you can't really explain it while you're doing it, while can't, you shouldn't, it won't be understood. If you try and tell somebody like, no, just trust me, it's going to be so cool. You got to come out here and see it. They won't. They can't. They can't see what you see when you're inside the dream.
Yep.
They have to see it. They have to actually see the product. And that was the same thing what happened with this building too, is that it's such a weird concept and trying to explain to people that we just stopped. We stopped showing any pictures. We didn't want to show anything.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to come and see it. And that's the best part.
Where did you get the idea for this building?
For Brewhalla?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not one singular idea. It's really, it's built out of needs and really a goal and a hope for where we could push Fargo forward. And then when you get to something of this scale, there's a lot of people that are gonna check all of your equations and math, and the banks get pretty serious about what you're doing. The insurance companies get pretty serious. You're playing a different ball game on this scale. So our ideas and dreams and kind of this hope of what we wanted to do, it also had to be feasible. It had to make sense on paper. It had to it had to meet the financial audits, and so that took a lot of work to pull together the components and show how it worked together. And to us, nothing changed to prove those concepts. It helped us get those people on board, and so we were really lucky to have partners that believed in us. Our bank being number one, that we went and pitched them the idea and what we were going to do, and they were in before we got to the numbers. And numbers always have to check out, but it also has to be done for the right reasons, and that's the hard part. And so that was really great to have their support. But the idea, really stayed the same the whole time, is that we were trying to create this totally unique experience in Fargo. We loved food halls. We loved boutique travel and boutique hotels and what the experience around that could be. And then we needed more event space to put on events that we wanted to do really, whether they're community spaces and we open it up to, groups like Startup Brew, or whether we're hosting our own fun immersive events, or letting people book, weddings or corporate events. We have a huge passion for helping people pull off events that are beyond their expectations and really something unique and special and against the norm.
Yeah.
And so getting all of those concepts pulled together really made sense to us the whole time. Every part of this building serves a synergistic purpose, and that idea was built out of those needs and kind of the dream of where we wanted to push stuff.
Gotcha. The space is pretty wild. When you first saw posts to the public of what it might be, 16 shops, is that right? I was like, oh, this is definitely something Fargo needed. And it was cool to see. It was almost exactly what I expected it to be. And I'm excited to see what the hotel looks like too. That was a concept I saw in Columbus as well, a brewery with a hotel. Yep. And I thought that was super unique. And when you guys posted that, it was going to be that as well. That's badass. And what a cool spot to do it as well. It's such a unique place to stay in Fargo. But I don't want to take up too much of your time, and I know you're going to give me an hour or something like that. But looking forward, I'm sure you guys don't want to stop here, and maybe you need to grow with the space a little bit. But what are goals that you guys have maybe for this space or beyond?
Well, that's how we started this chat too. We would never set a goal we would never set a goal that says we want to do another Brewhalla in South Fargo. We would, that's not how we would do it. And it's really not how we think. For us right now, and not to be cliched about, we just got done, but really, we're not done here. We don't think of the opening as a completion of the project. That's a start of the project. And we just built this really cool, fine machine here. and we want to take it for a ride. We are just starting to do the things this machine is built to do. And so all the events, the fun experiences, the hotel, all of that stuff that gets integrated, we're just getting started with that. And we're happy that Fargo is loving the market, enjoying all the restaurants and shops, and loves spending time here. But this is just the beginning of this building. This is it's cool to come into, but we haven't even really started firing on all cylinders here yet. So this place is going to have a lot of stuff going on. It's going to be a hub of activity and community space, and we just can't wait to get that stuff rolled out. But yeah, then we're not stopping. We look at our national and international distribution and try and be disruptive with that, and always making sure that we're pushing the envelope out there. So there's fun things that we're doing across the country in different markets. And then we're always looking for ways to challenge what Fargo can be and what it can become. And whenever the right opportunity comes up, we'll do it.
Are you guys always going to keep the main brewery or the main what is it, tasting room? Is that what it's called?
The tap room over
tap
there.
room?
Yeah. I don't really see that ever changing. I mean, we just see so much of ourselves in that building, and we love working there.
It's a beautiful space.
Yeah. I think these are maybe our worldwide headquarters for all the weird tentacles that we're going to send out. But this will always be home.
Gotcha. And then when it comes to like the mac and cheese and hot dog beers, do you guys like ship those out? Is there a market for those other places, or is that solely like an April Fool's kind of thing?
Yeah, I'm sure there is a market for it. I'm sure people would want to try it. And no, that's just to really shatter somebody's expectations about what could be possible. And it's a joke. It's fun. It's April Fool's Day. It's supposed to be something exceptionally weird. And every year we're just trying to think of a new way to really melt people's faces off. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're really adamant that we don't care if somebody likes all of our beers. We make over 200 different beers a year. We are not trying to make somebody's top 200 favorite and have every one of them be a favorite for them. We're trying to make some of those we're trying to make very unique experiences, very unique flavors. There might only be a few people that like really love it, but sometimes the best experience in a culinary journey is not that it's your new favorite thing. It's just something so different from what you've ever had before that it makes you think about it. It's unique. I don't want a ton of it. I'm not going to do this every weekend, but this is a great experience. And so we're just trying to really trying to do something that's so far out of people's comfort zones that it's unique to them. So we did macaroni and hot dog beer last year. We did the everything bagel and schmear beer this year. And the best part about it is that people are like that. I mean, it's either that was amazing or that was terrible. But the next comment is the same. They're all like, it tastes exactly what you said it did.
Yeah.
Like, I appreciate that you guys, that there's two polar opposite, personal opinions about that.
Yeah.
But our favorite part of that is that it was exactly what we said it was. We're not talking about, a joke kind of thing here that we're just trying out or, a hint of this. It's when we say we're going to create an experience, it is fully macaroni and cheese and hot dogs, or it is exactly what an everything bagel and cream cheese tastes like. And it's all there. Maybe it shouldn't be. Maybe you don't think it should be in existence, but
somebody thinks it should be.
What a time to be alive that you get to try.
Yeah. When you were thinking of the idea of a brewery, was it because you wanted to make beer, or was it more of an experience you wanted to provide as like an entrepreneur?
I don't think that those are mutually exclusive. I think that it can be both. I think we loved craft beer. We loved the variety that it's not a single product that you get to make, and that's rare. That's rare that you that in an industry or in a manufacturer that you have the ability to do that many different styles of products. And I loved that. I loved the idea of branding all those, and that's what our team loves, is that creating all those things, creating all the different ideas. What different flavor can we make? What different label and brand and different things can we do on there? It probably feeds our personalities really well. But then we also, so we love the brewing side. We love creating all the different styles. But then we also loved the overall experience that it could be. And I really think that's where the beauty and our passion in craft beer lines up, is that we can make phenomenal experiences through a business that is a community space and catalyzing moments and events, and we can do that also through creative beers and unique styles that shatter people's expectations, and those things. That's dually the passion that we have behind everything.
So when you were younger, like pre starting your own brewery, were you making like moonshine in your parents' garage, or?
So I got into a lot of it because of my either undergrad or graduate lab work.
Oh, okay.
I mean, fermentation sciences is the most fun practical application of microbiology. Brewing is a really unique application of like biochemistry when you're talking about sugar saccharification and enzymatic processes and everything that goes into that, and malting. And so I loved the science behind it, and that's really what got me into not just enjoying craft beer, but loving the science and the craft that went into making it.
My girlfriend will love that part. She works in fermentation for bread, so
sure.
Yeah, she's a huge nerd. But when she's a nerd in the sciences, I'm the nerd in like the people side of it, but of the sciences. But when it all came down to it, you said there's multiple partners. Was it like one sole person was in charge of beer and one was in charge of design, or is it kind of a shared passion?
I think we've been in our group, and now we have a leadership team that kind of we always say that, like, inside Drekker, we're not allowed to be called owners because we have a job here, and we share jobs, and we're coworkers with everyone that's here. And so we've got a great team of people, and really, whether it's the people that founded the brewery or the people that are running everything now, that there's a no matter what part of the business you're in, you're passionate about the whole thing.
Yeah.
And we talk about a lot of things in a roundtable discussion. In the beginning, that was talking about what types of beer styles that we want to do. Those are conversations that everyone can contribute to. The task of figuring it out or taking that idea and getting that into a tangible product, that's one person's job. The idea of branding it and coming up with artwork and those things, that's another person's job, or that's another direction it can go. And so there's lots of opportunity for different expertise, different teams to be involved in the overall thing that we do. But yeah, everyone shares that overall passion for, whether it's cool merchandise, fun events, a new unique beer, a fun way to do something traditional. Everyone here kind of throws into the idea pot, and I think that's part of our success too, is that we're drawing from a huge group of creative people that have a lot of different diversity of experience in their careers and their expertise and their backgrounds. And so we're not just looking at a brewer asking us what a brewer wants to make. That's a recipe for getting like 5 or 6 different types of beer. We're not trying to make our favorite beers. We're trying to make a whole team's creative ideas, and something that's going to mash up and be fun for the whole community. And so it takes a lot of people to chip in and do that.
Gotcha. Well, I'll let you go here. It's been just over an hour now, and I really do appreciate you coming on. It's people like you who share your time with me that allow me to keep doing this. I love getting to know people. It started from just doing Zoom calls for grad school, and now I just like discovering why people do what they do. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's fun talking.
Is there anything else you want to share finishing it up, or?
No, I mean, we always want to take a chance to really thank everyone that's on the team here, and there are so many people behind the scenes, working day in and day out to fabricate this little dream world that we have out here, and it's people on our team at Drekker, and then now it's all the amazing businesses that are at Brewhalla, and it's so rewarding to see the community come out and support that, and we are so proud of all the people that helped build this and created this team and create this experience out here. So I got to throw huge props out to all of them, and then just thank the community for making this possible.
Gotcha. Cool.
So thank you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate your time here. Thank you.
Alrighty, guys, that was an awesome podcast. I really appreciate Mark coming on, sharing his story, and just kind of allowing me to continue the podcast, being one of those people who gives their time to me. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you guys listening. So make sure you come back for more next week. Got some more awesome guests coming up here soon. Thank you.